Good day to you. Seems like an age since I've done a vlog for myself and for you, my friends. Been too busy doing things for other people. Maybe we need to change that. Feels like the end of a season, but what a beautiful end. Such a glorious day today, and the moon last night with mists wafting over it reminded me of how blessed we are to find magic in each moment. Tomorrow is usually the day when I do a blog for Moodscope, but I've published it already on LinkedIn. I thought I'd do this as a bit of a promotion. It's called The Joy of Ownership. You remember the joy of owning your first car. NML 606L for me, a Hillman Avenger, Caribbean blue, that changed colour under sodium lights. It was really amazing. And many happy memories in that. We actually bought the car from new as a family. It was the first car that my dad gave me, but we bought it as a family, and I learned to drive in it. And the very first day we went out, and it poured with rain. My mum was so disappointed because she wanted us to have a picnic out in the car. And my sister and I remember it as one of the best days of our lives because we had a picnic in the car, and it was superb. Rain hammering on the roof. Magical moments. So it's not what happens to us, it's how we interpret what happens to us that counts. I want to talk about ownership today, the joy of ownership. When I owned that car, when I had the slip that said, "This is my car," I felt like king of the earth. I felt free. I had freedom of movement, freedom of travel. It was like learning to walk, learning to ride a bike. And now I could drive anywhere I wanted, possibly in the world. Though my world at that time was quite small. England would have done quite nicely. It was a great feeling. And I imagine, I've never owned my own house, but if you own your own house and you've paid off your mortgage, I can imagine how amazingly safe that feels and reassuring. So there is a joy in ownership, and yet we humans are quite divided in our mind over ownership, aren't we? If there's a problem, litter upsets me, and it's somebody else's problem, isn't it? Somebody else threw that wrapper down without thinking. It's usually at McDonald's. Countryside, sponsored by McDonald's. I used to live along the coast, the Jurassic coast, and the amount of rubbish that was washed up, all with good branding on it. It'd be nice if those brands actually paid to clear it up. But it's not their fault, they would say, it's our customers. And that's the point, isn't it? They don't own the problem. So in my workshops, I set people up for a little bit of a giggle, and I do something silly, which is clearly my fault. And then I say to the group, "Whose fault was that?" And they'll go, "It's your fault, Lex." I said, "You're quite right there. I really agree with you. What I'd like you to do is point your finger at the person who is to blame and hold your finger, your index finger, pointing at the person who is to blame." And so they all point at me. And I say, "Now say out loud, 'It's your fault, Lex.'" And they all go, "It's your fault, Lex." And then I go, "Gotcha. Look at your own hand." And on your own hand, while you're pointing the finger at somebody else, there are 3 fingers pointing back at you. So if that's 100% of the blame, that's only 25%. 75% is pointing back at you. And that is an utterly liberating concept. If you thought, whether or not it's true, that 75% of the problems you encounter are within your power to do something about, that will make you a very, very happy person. When I see the litter on the pavement, if I pick it up, it isn't my fault. I didn't drop it. But I own, and today's blog is about ownership, I own the problem. By going, right, I'll do something about that, 75%, vroom. I've acknowledged that people shouldn't litter, and you shouldn't. However, I've done something about it to make the world a better, brighter, bolder place. And when we do that, we feel empowered and we feel happier. So every time I don't own the problem, and that's the mantra to go with that. Mantra is a Sanskrit word, which means the action as based on a thought. So when we say something, it leads to an action. When I own the problem, I give myself power. And if I don't own the problem, I lose the opportunity. So think problem, opportunity. Problem means opportunity. One of my favourite podcasters is a chap called Joe Polish. often interviews the wonderful Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach. And Joe Polish said this amazing thing about his business, which wasn't going very well. He was a carpet cleaner in Florida, had his own business. It was very, very hot work. It was very, very, very hard work. And he was a bit fed up. So he had an opportunity to speak to a successful entrepreneur, success as measured by financial success. And they were going to go out for a recreational day on their jet skis, boom, on the Florida coast. That's the cat rocking the camera. Hello, Joey. And so he said, do you know what I'll do? I'm going to take this opportunity. I'm going to say to this fella, look, the business I'm in is not doing particularly well. You're a successful entrepreneur. What would you recommend as a business for me to get into? And this was one of those life-changing moments. So the guy said, oh, what sort of business are you in? He said, oh, I'm in the carpet cleaning business. And the entrepreneur said to Joe, he said, so is there anybody in Florida in the carpet cleaning business who's really being financially successful at it and enjoying what they're doing? And Joe said, yeah, of course there is. And he looked at him, this entrepreneur looked at Joe Polish and said, well, then you're the problem. Now that may seem enormously rude and quite discouraging, but Joe took it in the right sense, which was, if you're the problem, then you're also the solution. The problem is the opportunity. So he took the 75% concept, I own the problem, and he said, you know what? I'm going to succeed in the carpet cleaning business before I try to jump to any other business. And he did. So that's the message for today. I own the problem. Every time you think about pointing the finger of blame at somebody else, that reminds me of someone I grew up with. When we were in meetings together, he didn't just point one finger, he pointed both hands. I remember being in one meeting with him and he was doing the and I started ducking, and he's like, what are you doing? I said, you're shooting at me. That changed his life. So every time you think about pointing the problem and blaming someone else, just think, actually, is there a 75% opportunity for me to take action here and make a difference? Bigger, brighter, bolder, and maybe even better. Thanks for tuning in today. Next McKee, tuning out with our phrase, live long and prosper.